Queen Charlotte, and here is what I thought. Ugh, guys, I loved this show so much. I can't stop thinking about it. So here are my thoughts about this show. If you have never heard about Queen Charlotte, I don't know where you've been, but it's a prequel to the Bridgerton series. But this series focuses strictly on Queen Charlotte and her marriage to King George. As soon as I heard that this was in the works, I was super excited to see it because Queen Charlotte is iconic in the Bridgerton series. Love her. So when I saw the trailer, I have to admit, I was a little bit apprehensive about it. I wasn't really sure about this new queen and if I would really fall in love with these characters, just because I love the original queen from the series so much. So I went in with my expectations just a little bit lower than I usually do for the Bridgerton series. As I began watching the show, I quickly realized that I would love this. As I mentioned before, this show focuses on the life of Queen Charlotte and her marriage to King George. And we get to see their love stories, we get to see the high and the lows, and what they were actually going through during their marriage. So, warning you now, I will be getting to spoilers very, very soon. So, if you have not seen this show already, go watch it immediately and then come back and hear my thoughts and see if you agree. But if you don't really care about spoilers, then here we go. Okay, let's get into the deep nitty gritty of Queen Charlotte, y'all. So honestly, I really didn't have any idea what the show would really be about besides Queen Charlotte and King George meeting each other. So if you have seen the Bridgerton series, you know that in his older age, he seemed to be having some type of dementia, forgetting things, not really knowing where he is. And so I assumed that this would be before that this would just be their story. And maybe in the end, we'll see how that happened. But I was definitely wrong. So as we watch Queen Charlotte, we soon realize that he has dealt with this a lot longer than I anticipated or really thought. I just thought this was something that came around with old age, like Alzheimer's and something like that. But we see right away that he has dealt with this his entire life. He really can't remember certain things. He's not always there in the present. And we realize it's something more serious. At least I assumed it was just some type of thing he got when he was in his older age, like Alzheimer's, something like that. Not really knowing where he was, not really remembering or forgetting certain things. But no, in Queen Charlotte, we realize it's something more serious, something he has had to deal with his entire life. So for this video, I'm not going to be recapping the entire season. What I'm going to do is go through my favorite parts and my least favorite parts. Honestly, I love the entire show, so this just happens to be the least favorite out of the best. So don't just think I hate everything about the show. No, I love this entire series, but these are just the things I liked the least. So just remember that. Okay, first one is Lord Danbury. Y'all, did not like him. He was literally disgusting. After watching the show, I found a few TikToks that were talking about how they hated seeing him on the screen, and they voiced my exact thoughts perfectly. Whoever was in charge of his look, they did their job because every time he came on the screen, I was like, this man, and how dare he be the lord to Lady Danbury? She deserved better. She looks beautiful like a goddess, and then we have this man. But it's a different time. But I was completely surprised about Lady Danbury's husband. When you learn where she came from, it just made her story and where she is now in the current Bridgerton series, it made me love her even more. Or the next thing I guess I did not love was the doctor. Do I need to say more? No, we all know why we don't like this doctor. Nope, do not like him at all. The way he treated King George and his treatments, no. And at first, when you first see him, he kind of helps George, and I was like, okay, maybe this is exactly what he needs, because he's very gentle. He kind of brings him back, and no one has really been able to do that, or I don't think they have. And it seems like someone who could help King George. I was like, oh, cool. But then as we progress throughout the series, nope. He just starts using terrible tactics, terrible types of treatments, if that's what you want to call them. And he is not a good man. As the show goes on, the treatments get progressively worse and worse. And I think they were more harming him than treating him. Or not even treating him, but like they were harming him more than what any good I believe they could have ever done. So yeah, the Doctor we do not like. The next thing I didn't love, or one of my least favorite parts of the show, was when Lady Danbury's title, but like her fighting to keep her title. So this part of her trying to maintain her title was just so like heartbreaking and sad. It was, she just lost her husband, so she's not really thinking about that. She's kind of thinking about what's next for her. But then everyone who was bestowed a title by the royal family comes to her and it's like, okay, so what happens when your husband died? Does our titles pass on? Like, you're the first one for this to happen to, so what's happening to us? Like, is this something that we get to pass on to our kids and their kids, or is this just something they just happen to do for a show at the wedding, but then after the man dies, we no longer have that title, or something like that? Like, they didn't say in that so many words, but they basically said, do we get to keep these titles, or is it just like what happens? So she needs to figure this out, and everyone's kind of looking to her because she's the example, because it's the first person. So just this whole thing that happened with her title, at least the beginning stages, I did not like. I felt bad for her. Like, she tried, definitely different ways and sneaky ways to try to keep her title, like using her son. In the end, eventually she does get to keep it, thank goodness for Queen Charlotte. But just seeing her go through that was just, I did not love seeing her struggle. I love Lady Danbury, and you want to see her just as being strong and like that all the time, but we do see this sadness and vulnerability from her when she's talking to the Queen. Like, she just feels a little hopeless because I feel like she has a weight on her that everyone's depending on her. That whole situation was one of my least favorite parts in the show. And of course, one of my least favorite parts throughout the show was King George, seeing him go through his struggles. And it was just so sad and so heartbreaking. And of course, this is a very big part of the season, is George dealing with his mental health and what he is going through. And it was very sad to see him go to such extremes to try and fix, or I guess him trying to fix, cure this, trying to figure out a way like to stop this from continuously happening to him. And back in this time, he didn't know what else to do. When someone else presented him with any type of hope, he was willing to do anything. He was willing to be tortured, to be better, to get better. And so just seeing all of that was so heartbreaking, because like, what do you do? His mom tried everything and nothing worked, and he's trying to protect Charlotte, trying not to let her see this side of him, trying to be a king that all the people see that as a strong person. And he's dealing with all this pressure and just trying to make this part of him go away was just really sad. Him feeling like he wasn't worthy of love and thinking he's only half a person just literally broke my heart. Oh my goodness, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. And he's king, so he needs to appear strong and healthy. Like, that is his job. And so that alone, just being the king, is so much pressure and a lot to bear. But then you add on what he's been dealing with, and it's just so much for one person to handle. That's why King George's story was just so sad. And we have that one episode in this series where we see everything that's been going on kind of behind the scenes from his point of view, what's been going on with him. Because before we didn't know that, but then we get that curtain drawn back and we get to see what he's been going through on the other side. And it makes you understand why he's acting a certain way towards Charlotte. So yeah, that was one of my least favorite things. And I definitely know it's a big part of the season and a big important part of their love story, but it was just so hard just to see him go through all of this. Okay, so we went through some of my least favorites. Now let's get into what I absolutely loved. And as I said before, I basically loved everything in the show, but here are some of my favorites. So first one we're going to talk about is just something very short. And one of the lines by Queen Charlotte was sorrows, prayers. Like literally when this line came up, it was just so funny. Yes, everyone's mourning, but she's just there like I can't deal with emotion right now. I'm just gonna pat you on the shoulder and be like, okay, say a couple words and hopefully this comforts you. And I don't know if you have someone in your life like that, but I definitely have someone in my life like that who's not a very emotional person, but does try to comfort as best they can. And I immediately put them in Queen Charlotte's place, just tapping me on my shoulder. Sorrows, prayers, because I'm the complete opposite. I wear my heart on my sleeve, super emotional person, I can show my emotions so easily. It was just so funny seeing that little tidbit. So that was one of my favorite things. But let's get into some more, I guess, serious topics. So another thing I loved about this season was Lady Danbury and Queen Charlotte's friendship. So we do see touches of it in the Bridgerton series, but I love seeing it in this show. I love seeing them as friends and trusting each other and really still seeing how it began between them. From the very beginning, Lady Danbury let Queen Charlotte know that she could depend on her. Like, as they're leaving, she says, be careful, and if you call on me, I will come. Like, so she already knows, at least I believe Queen Charlotte knows, you can trust me, you can depend on me if you feel like you have no one else. And she does call on her because Queen Charlotte's in a new place. She doesn't know anyone. She just married a stranger, and she could really use a friend, and Lady Danbury is that friend. And she's a friend to her in so many ways. She's someone she can vent to about her relationship with the king, but Lady Danbury will also kind of not put her in her place, but make Queen Charlotte open her eyes. Like at one point, it's like, you have all this power. You are the person, I guess, like the catalyst or the person that is like leading this change that is beginning to happen in our society. And you're worried about if a guy likes you when you have so much other things you should be worrying about, so much power to change things. So I love seeing Lady Danbury be a shoulder Queen Charlotte can cry on, or a person she can come to for comfort. But also I love Lady Danbury feeling, I guess, the confidence and feeling like she can really voice her opinion to Queen Charlotte. And that again comes to that friendship you see. Okay, another thing I loved was Brimsley. Like, we do see a little bit of him in Bridgerton, but I love seeing more of him in the Queen Charlotte series and how their relationship started out. That was it was definitely very interesting. And you see, he would do anything for his queen. His job is to always be by her side, always be a few steps behind her. And sometimes, she did not want him there. He was just always there, but he was someone she could eventually depend on. And Reynolds would do anything for the king as well, so we do like Reynolds. But I don't know, there was a scene. So there was this one scene between Brimsley and Queen Charlotte, and it was so simple but yet so powerful. And if you have seen the show, you probably know the exact scene when Brimsley comforts Queen Charlotte as best he can. He's always with her, so he kind of knows what she's going through. She's alone again. King George left and went away again, and frustrated and sad, and she just, he's always behind her, they're walking, and then she just stops, and she just needs to take a moment to let these emotions out a bit. And she just stands there, and he knows she's upset and sad, and he has to be a certain distance away from her, so he just lifts his hand and holds it there, like he's comforting her and putting his hand on his shoulder when he can't really touch her. So that was a very powerful scene. And it was interesting because what I expected him to do was put his hand out, like he was going to touch her, realizing his place and his status and what he can and cannot do, and then putting his hand down and just standing there, which I think would also be powerful. But I loved what they did in the show even more. And it was something I guess I didn't expect, that he lifted his hand and left it there. Like, he's like, I know I can't touch you, but I am going to comfort you as best I can. I'm going to leave my hand here like it is touching your shoulder. And he just left it there until she was ready. And then they go off and begin walking again. And, she doesn't see him do this. He's just behind her. But I feel like in that scene, you can tell she feels him comforting her. And I just felt like just that simple gesture that they put in that show just said so much. And that was one reason I love Brimsley and Queen Charlotte. Just literally that particular scene I loved. It was just so powerful. Okay, my next favorite thing that I loved about this show was Lady Danbury choosing herself. And I think this part was so important and very powerful. So when she gets, a marriage proposal from the Queen's brother, he is a nice man. He's young, a lot more attractive than her previous husband. She doesn't know the status of her title. So this could be the answer to everything she wanted. But instead of that, when she chooses herself, she doesn't know if she will have the title. She doesn't know she have money. All she knows that is she cannot be married again. She doesn't want to be someone's wife. She wants to live for herself. In that time, women needed men. Women depended on men for almost everything they had. And so her consciously saying, I cannot be married again. I choose me. I'm not going to do that again. I don't want to be someone's wife. I want to be Lady Danbury. I want to be Agatha Danbury. I just want to be myself, live for myself, make my own choices, and not have to do something someone else tells me to do. It was just so powerful, so brave and amazing that she still chose herself through all of that. And of course, how could I even mention my favorite things without mentioning this? And it was King George and Queen Charlotte's relationship. Even though this basically the entire show, but just focusing on their relationship, it was the best thing. The best thing. I don't know how Shondaland does it. I honestly don't know. How do they keep outdoing what they have done before? This by far was my favorite couple. I thought I loved Daphne and Simon and Anthony and Kate, but I love Queen Charlotte and King George. There were just so many parts in their relationship that we saw that I absolutely loved. And one of them was their first meeting in this arranged marriage. Wants to get away, tries to climb a wall, and their little banter. And the way he even said it was her choice on whether she wanted to marry him or not. We love it. We love a man that lets her choose. And then in the episode Even Days, a very, steamy episode. But even when they don't like each other, we still see that there are feelings there. There's a connection there. But I think one of the things I loved the absolute most was how Charlotte was always there for him and let him know that she would always be there. And as I said before, we see this mental illness he has, and he is trying to hide it from her. He doesn't tell her the truth. And then when she finds out, I think overall her reaction to all of this was pretty good. In my opinion, that's just my opinion. But at first she's very confused, but she goes to him, gets him to calm down, and gets him back inside. She is upset because she was lied to. She does confront the queen, all these signs of different things happening. I didn't know why this was happening. I didn't know why these windows were locked. But then she starts to realize, you knew, no one told me the man I was marrying. And I think she was more hurt that no one told her the truth about him. Not that he had this he was dealing with, but no one even told her about it. She was lied to. But once she did find out the truth, she stood by her man. She began to realize, things started to make sense to her. She started to put the pieces together that, okay, he's acting this way because of this. A lot of his actions towards her began to make sense to her. And she loved him, and she made him know that she loved him. And that very, very powerful scene when she goes to him and confronts him is saying, do you love me? He's just telling her, just go. And it's he's just telling her to go away, being mean, but he's doing it to protect her because he loves her. And when she confesses her love first, it's I think you don't think anyone could love you, but I love you. Do you love me? And he finally confesses his love. That scene, it's so good. Already in tears, man. It was so good. I that's one thing I really love, that Charlotte was just always there for him and was able to stand by him and always knew the right thing to say, but most importantly made sure he knew that she would stand with him and he didn't have to be afraid of her leaving because she would be there. So the next thing kind of goes with Queen Charlotte and King George's relationship, but I think I loved it so much I need to make it its own thing, and that's the finale. And when I say the finale, I'm focusing on the final episode and also particularly the final scene. This episode was just so good, and it was also, you get a little sad too. It's kind of bittersweet. So in the final episode, we see Charlotte and George, they're happy, and he's no longer seeing that doctor. But we do see, even with Charlotte in his life, he still has to deal with this mental illness. And I think maybe for a little while, they thought he was fine. They realized this is something he will always have. And I think they both believed it. They both believed that Charlotte will help him get better, that he just needed someone to love him and he'll be fine. But that's not really the case, that he's not fine. But in the final episode, we get this scene under the bed. And it's very, very powerful, a very iconic scene. So the first one was right after George was supposed to go to Parliament, but he couldn't do it. And he goes under the bed, he feels safe under the bed. And that's where Queen Charlotte finds him. And so she's like, come from under the bed. He's like, no, I don't think I can. So what does she do? She joins him underneath the bed and they both lay there. He's like, I feel safe under here. In that scene, I think for the first time that he realizes there is no cure for this. I will always have this and be like this. And he begins to feel bad for for what he's putting Queen Charlotte through, or that he lied to her. He's like, and this is her life now. And it's just, again, so sad. And just seeing him be like again, how I said before, how he's seeing himself as half a person. But of course, Queen Charlotte, being the amazing person she is, saying, you told me the truth from the beginning. You said that you were just George and that's all you need to be. Oh my goodness, I love, whoever wrote this. So good, just pulling at my heartstrings, right? But just hearing her say those words to him, she lets him know he is fine just the way he is, and that she loves him for who he is. And honestly, I can't imagine how long he has waited for someone to say those words, or to make him feel like he is fine just the way he is. And yes, they will have struggles. They will have to deal with this as best they can, and it will be hard. But she lets him know she loves him, knowing everything about him. So yeah, we go from that under the bed scene, which is very sweet, a very great moment between them, when Charlotte comforts him again, letting him know he is enough and they're going to make the best life they can ever have together. And then we go through the rest of the episode, and then we get to the very final scene, and the scene was just so beautiful. So this is present day, or I guess older King George and Queen Charlotte. So throughout this season, she's trying to get an heir, make her kids have grandbabies, to continue the line. So she just found out that one of her kids pregnant, they're gonna have a grandbaby, and she wants to tell George. So from the Bridgerton series, we have seen his condition or mental illness. It looks like it's gotten worse when he's older, because we don't see him publicly anymore. We just mostly see Queen Charlotte's, but we see little glimpses of him when they're together. And so she goes to see him, and then doesn't really know where he is. He's in this state, but then she calls him Farmer George, and she gets under the bed. And when he sees her do that, and she's like, hide from the heavens with me, and he joins her under the bed like they did when they were younger. And literally through this entire scene, I was crying. It's amazing how he even saw anything. So this is what she tells him. Our son's having a child. Your line would be continuing. And he's like, our line. And I was like, our line. I love them. And so they're under the bed, and then they look at each other and they say, thank you. Thank you to each other. And then we see that they see each other as their younger selves. And then there's a part when he says, "You did not go over the wall." And I was just like, he remembers. He's remembering that moment they met. That moment literally, it's just them under the bed. They're not king and queen, but they're just George and Charlotte, just them, safe under the bed, away from the rest of the world. Oh my goodness. Just thinking about it, I'm tearing up because it was just so beautiful. Because we know, oh my god, I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna take 1 minute to try to get myself in check. It was just because we know kind of what happens to him, how he still has this, and this is something they still have to deal with. And he's not always there, like she's kind of ruling on her own because he's not fully there anymore. So just seeing that moment where they could be them again, be Charlotte and George again, be just under this bed like they were when they first fell in love, when they were first starting out, and just have that moment of them being there, him knowing that they're there together, was just so sweet. So it was a great way to, I think, end the season. I was like, it's not sunshine and rainbows, like they live happily ever after, but this is their moment of happiness. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about that scene now, because if I don't, I'll probably burst into tears and not be able to finish this video. This show was definitely the most emotional one, in my opinion. I think out of all the love stories we saw, this one would just hit you right in the feels. I don't know how they did it, but they did a good job. They did a very, very good job on this show. So if you couldn't figure it out already, I gave this show 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I have not been able to stop thinking about it. I started watching people's reactions to the show, and especially the final episode and scene of what they think about it. Every time I watch the scene, even if someone's reaction of it, I start crying again, because I'm just like, I'm a hot mess. That's why. And I have been listening to the soundtrack. That's another thing. The music. I literally am obsessed. So good. Like Chris Bowers, so talented. I'm just sitting there like, how does someone come up with this? Like, how is someone so talented and creative? It's just amazing. And literally, I can't listen to Thank You without tearing up a little bit, because it's just so beautiful, and it just takes me back to that scene. Literally, the whole story, the whole show is just so beautiful. And I think what makes it so great are the difficulties in their relationship they have to overcome each and every day. I really don't know how they're going to top this story, but I'm excited to see the next season of Bridgerton. I am probably going to be rewatching this show very soon and just cry all over again. I don't know if this will have a second season, because I think the way they ended it was just so good, and I don't know what else they could tell us about their relationship, because we know how it ends. We saw that final moment, and we know where they started, so I don't really know what else they could tell us about them. So I don't know if this will get a second season. There definitely was one major question for me that I'd like to know more, and that was what happened to Reynolds. We see that Brimsley is alone now with the queen in present day, like Bridgerton series. So what happened in between that time? So I'm not sure if they're gonna have a second season. For me, finding that out in the second season would be that's the only thing I can think of why a second season would be done for Queen Charlotte, is to tell that part of the story. But again, they just ended it so well. Like, I feel like they don't need a second season, at least for Queen Charlotte and George's story. I'm also wondering if they'll try to incorporate Brimsley's story with Reynolds in the Bridgerton series maybe, and do that. I honestly don't know like what they're gonna do, because I feel like that's something a lot of fans, a lot of people watch the show want to know what happened. So I want to know how they will tell that and reveal that story to us. If you have seen Queen Charlotte, what did you think? I think I would love to see these characters in the Bridgerton series. I don't know how, but maybe like little flashbacks moments, like with Queen Charlotte and King George, or even Lady Danbury, just little flashback moments in future Bridgerton series. Like, I would love that. I just fell in love with these characters, so I don't want to say goodbye to them just yet. I want to see more of them. So any way they can incorporate them in future Bridgerton series, I will be thankful. So you can catch Queen Charlotte and all the Bridgerton series on Netflix if you haven't watched any of them. So if you watch Queen Charlotte without watching Bridgerton, I would say go watch Bridgerton because you probably will like it. And if you watch Bridgerton and haven't seen Queen Charlotte, but you just came here for the vibes, go watch Queen Charlotte. It was beautiful. I also heard that Julia Quinn and Shonda Rhimes collaborated on a book for Queen Charlotte. So maybe I'm going to pick that up and go deeper into this love story because loved, like absolutely loved. And I would just love to get more of them. So I hope you guys enjoyed me completely gushing over this show and just talking about how much I loved it and almost bursting into tears again because of how beautiful this story was. So feel free to go check out my website. I have more TV content on there. I will also link my social below so you guys can follow me on all those. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I hope you have a good rest of your day, week, month, and hopefully a good rest of your year. And until next time, bye.